Welcome back. Welcome back. We are continuing our story time series. I know I haven't done one of these in a while. I have two stories for you. It's basically how I fumble baddies. And so the first story, I used to run a marketing business, and this random woman hit me up one day, and I was like, "Yo, like, how did you get my number?" And she was like, I got it through my cousin, and I was like, "Well, who's your cousin?" And like she would never tell me, but like you know, started working with her even though it was like very strange how she got my number out of the blue. Um and I don't remember her name, to be honest with you, at all. And this story is probably like this happened like 9 years ago, probably, maybe 10 years. No, maybe like 8 years ago, maybe. So anyways, me and her start working together, and I live in a college town, to basically where the college is like half of the town type thing. Well, you guys know what a college town is. Anyway, so me and her start working together, doing business together, and I find out that she is a softball player. And it kind of made sense because this chick had the stereotypical softball player type build, really thick thighs, and you know how they do like a bunch of squats, and I don't really know, but she had that softball or baseball type player build. And she was kind of pretty, you know what I mean? She wasn't necessarily my type, but at the time I don't think I was too picky at that time, even though she wasn't my type. I mean, I wasn't like super attracted to her, but I would definitely give her a shot. So, anyways, one day, she invites me out to the club with her and her friends, and I'm like, sure, I'll go out to the club. I'll meet you at the club. And she's like, hey, like, pull up and come meet us in my Jeep or like my SUV. So I walk up to the SUV, and I'm expecting, like her to be in the driver's seat, and maybe like, some chick friends, or like a chick friend and like a couple. But to my surprise, there's the girl in the driver's seat, a dude in the passenger seat, and then another dude and chick in the back seat. So already four people in this SUV, and then me. So, like I said, there was already a dude in the passenger seat. So I was kind of like, I thought she was kind of inviting me out to like, hang out with her like as a boyfriend type, or like potential boyfriend type thing. So kind of like a little party date. Um, but with that dude being in the passenger seat, I really was confused, because I was like, why did you invite me out here if you already have a boyfriend? Especially if your boyfriend's here, like, is he not gonna, start freaking out or whatever? But anyways, I was like, no big deal. Like, this is a really awkward situation, but I've already prepared myself to come out here to the club and party and stuff like that. So that's what I did. We hung out and talked for a little bit in the car. She introduced me to everybody. I introduced myself. So then we go inside, and her and that dude are talking some more, like the dude that was in the passenger seat. So I'm like, okay, clearly this is her boyfriend, and I'm just here to party with them. So I was like, no big deal. So probably after about 30 minutes, I kind of, or maybe like 10, 20 minutes, I don't really remember, but I got kind of bored. And at the time, this is going to sound really goofy, but at the time I was practicing what they call a game a lot. So, I was like basically cold approaching like a bunch of girls and stuff. Or at the time, like that's like what I was doing, and just like talking and dancing with them and stuff like that. So that's what I started doing. I just started, walking up to, different girls, and, dancing with them and talking to like different girls all throughout the club. I mean, I honestly probably did this for like at least an hour or two, of walking around, dancing and talking with other girls. So, I'm making some friends there, having a good time. And after about 2 hours, I'm like, let me check on what, the friend group that I came here with, or that group that I came here with, check on what they're doing. So I remember the table that they had, kind of set up their little base at. And I'd look back at that table and I see the dude that was in the passenger seat as well as the dude that was in the back seat making out with each other. And then I'm like, oh crap. I'm like, I didn't know those two dudes were gay. Well, I knew the dude in the back seat was gay, but I thought the other dude was like, that chick's boyfriend. I didn't know he was gay too. So then I look at over at that chick and she's just sitting there at the table and she looks like super pissed off. So yeah, that's pretty much it for that story. Um I guess I'll talk about the gameplay a little bit. I hadn't played Fortnite in probably like 2 months, mainly because I didn't really like that superhero season that we had. And I've also never landed at this POI, which is why you see me doing like a lot of like exploratory stuff, like killing all these like little bugs, because like I'm sure there should be some type of boss here, but I'm just not sure. This, like I said, this is my first time landing here. Um, but yeah, let's go ahead and hop into the next story. Um, so this girl's name I do remember, although I don't remember her last name. But even if I did, I wouldn't tell you. So this story is in high school. In high school, I took this Spanish class, and I in Spanish class, like I'm Hispanic, but like I speak a little bit of Spanish, probably like 40, 50 words I know, you know what I mean? And I know like a good amount of Spanish songs, not necessarily what they're saying, but I do know, the songs themselves. So anyways, I'm taking this Spanish class because it's kind of required. We were required to take some kind of alternative language other than English class. So I chose Spanish, and I actually really enjoyed it. But getting back to the main story, there was this girl named Raquel in this classroom, and Raquel, she was like, I'm not really sure what race she was, but she was probably like a Hispanic lady, but she was kind of like darker skinned. You know what I mean? She was like a dark skinned Hispanic, but she was pretty. You know what I mean? She wasn't like the stereotypical like Instagram model pretty, but she was kind of like one of those like low key pretty girls, and she was very skinny. She was a very skinny girl, and I really didn't pay much mind to her, probably in the first half of the year. But in the second half of the year, or as the school year went on, one day I'd be kind of bored in Spanish class. I'd just be daydreaming and stuff, kind of like staring or like looking off into space, in my own head or whatever. And one day I had noticed that Raquel was wearing like either a skirt or some shorts, plus she was wearing sandals. And so most of like her leg was this story is going to be kind of funny. At least I think it's kind of funny. Anyways, so most of her legs were like exposed, as well as her, for her feet for the most part, as far as being in sandals. And I'm not really a foot fetish type of guy, but for some reason I had just found myself, I don't know if encapsulated is the right word that I'm thinking it means, but I was like infatuated with like this chick's feet. And I was probably staring, I mean, the class is like an hour long. So I was probably like kind of like admiring, the bottom 30-40% of her body for probably like 30-40 minutes. And so the next day, Raquel happened to be wearing a very similar outfit, with sandals again. So the next day in class, there I am, daydreaming and staring at her feet. And I'm laughing because this story is like low key kind of embarrassing. So, anyways, I'm like staring at her again, and I noticed that she kind of does like this little movement that females do with their feet. It's kind of like a little twirl. It's hard to explain without showing you. But anyway, she does like this little twirl with her feet. And then she like does it again, like back to back. So like, I'm like, well, that's kind of weird. So I look up at Raquel in her face, and this chick is like dead staring at me. She's like dead staring at me. And then I'm like, oh crap, man. I've been busted. Like this chick knows that I've been staring at her feet. I'm like, this is so embarrassing. And then so like I try to like, not look again for the rest of the classroom or the rest of that day. And I was like, surely this chick, I was like, this is embarrassing as heck. And surely this chick is not going to ever wear sandals again to school. Lo and behold, this girl continues to wear sandals. And I'm sure, like, I don't think she was like a poor girl. I don't think she looked like she came from a wealthy family. So she obviously could afford shoes. But this girl continued to wear sandals and, never told me anything or never like told the teacher or anything like that. So, I would just glance over every now and then and just check out her nice feet, I guess. And believe me, this is not going to sound, it's going to sound like I'm capping, but I really do not have a foot fetish. It's just, hers in particular were nice. So I eventually started thinking, I was like, I need to ask this girl out, man. Like, I need to shoot my shot with this girl. So at the time, I guess it was about close to Christmas time, and we had what did we have? We had a school parade. No, we had a city parade coming up where, in one of the main streets in our city, the city would throw a huge parade, and they got hot cocoa and I don't even know what else. Like, I don't know, gingerbread houses for sale. I don't know. But, it's like a nice event. And I was like, oh, this will be a perfect date to ask Raquel on. So, sure enough, that's what I did is the day before the parade. Actually, the day of the, no, I think it was the day before the parade. I asked her. So, excuse me, I'm kind of sick. Sorry. So, the day before the parade, or no, maybe it was the day of. I asked her, I was like, yo, Raquel, like, there's this Christmas parade, going on tonight. Would you like to go with me? I was like, I think it'd be really cool if we can go check it out together. And so this is essentially me shooting my shot with her. And she responds with, she's like, well, Isaac, she was like, that sounds really cool, but I actually can't. I'm like, why not? And she's like, well, I'm in the band here at the high school, and we are actually playing in the parade, so I can't go with you to the parade because I'm in the parade myself. And I'm like, okay, and I pretty much just let it go. Since we have enough time, I'm gonna try to throw in another story. There was this female named Michaela, also at my high school. Michaela was like drop dead gorgeous, kind of pretty much my type before I had a type. And I always had a crush on Michaela. Like, I always thought she was pretty. But at the same time, I also used to take something called game battles back in the day, because we didn't have rank back in the day. We had something called game battles. This is essentially this website we can go to and like you could compete, and like it would keep track of like your teams or your records. And then you would like compete to like get to the top of the leaderboard, and if you qualified to like top 16, then you could like make it into tournaments for money and stuff like that. So I used to take that very serious, and I used to grind the heck out of it back in the day. So long story short, me and Michaela eventually became had the same class, and she sat right next to me. Me being super nervous, she's very pretty. I'm not gonna talk to her. I'm not gonna shoot my shot. I'm not gonna make the first move. She's too pretty, and I'm too nervous at the time. So one day, like I said, we're sitting right next to each other. One day she's like, hey, do you have like a spare pencil? She's like, I like forgot mine. And I'm like, oh, sure, here you go. So I give her one, and like we kind of chit chat a little bit. Well, ever since that day, me and Michaela had became like really good friends. And this whole time, like, I think she's super pretty and stuff like that. But even though we're like chit chatting as friends and stuff and kind of like flirting a little bit, I'm not going to shoot my shot with her. Long story short, Michaela, she was a grade older than me. I was a junior and she was a senior. Long story short, she kind of like asked me to prom. And she asked me to prom without straight up asking me to go to prom. And she was basically like, hey, like, are you going to prom? And I'm like, no, I'm not going to prom. And she's like, well, she's like, why not? And I was like, I don't have anybody to go with. And she's like, well, I don't have anybody to go with neither. And she was like, but I'm still gonna go. She's like, I think you should go. So and then I basically told her that like I would like think about it, or maybe I told her no, but I think I told her no. But in hindsight, she was definitely, in my opinion, she was definitely asking me out to prom with her. And yeah, I just fumbled that one. But I'll tell you guys this, even though I essentially just told you three stories of me kind of fumbling or, giving up on somewhat opportunities, I don't always fumble them. And no, I do not have a foot fetish, at least publicly. Well, that's going to be it for this video. Thank you guys for joining in. The gameplay is going to play out some, but I don't know what else to talk about.